Podem começar.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a really great time networking with other participants, and we're ready to kick off this roundtable. So I have both Miguel and Nuno with me, but before we jump into the questions and the discussion, there were a couple of questions that were left to be answered from the previous session, and two of them were about actually external data. So first of all, yes, you can use external data. If you want, you can even solve the whole challenge with only external data. You don't have to use the data that we provide. This is just, let's say, a big helpful hand from the beginning. But there is one restriction, is that this external data has to be free. It shouldn't be a paid data, so to say. It should be open and it should be legally obtained. Then there was another question about what's the expectation of using the Open Weather API. You're not expected to use it to solve the challenge, but we think that it might be useful in some of the challenges, because when we're talking about mobility, the weather can really have a huge effect there. And then one last question was regarding if there's some objective criteria. Well, yes, the solutions are graded only on the subjective criteria. So we see this competition rather a test of how good a data science professional you are. So if you can understand the problem, the product, the business, and know which tools and metrics to use in order to solve the problem. So of course, this makes it difficult to select one single metric to measure on, as the whole process of selecting the metric can be evaluated. Nevertheless, in order to decrease the subjectivity, we decided to assign at least 3 jury members per submission. And they have very specific criteria when they're going to be evaluating your submission. So I hope that answers your questions. And of course, if you have any further questions about the competition format, feel free to use Discord or just get in touch with us. So before we jump to the roundtable, maybe I'll just give an introduction to our small panel of experts. First, we have Miguel. So Miguel is the Associated Dean of Nova AMS, and he created the Nova Cidade Urban Analytics Lab, which is devoted to research and study of smart, sustainable cities. And then Nuno is an enthusiast of everything related with data analytics and data science. He has more than 20 years of experience in data science consultancy in several industries, use cases, both national and international. And right now, he's the Chief Analytics and Strategy Officer at PSE, which is the main provider of the 2 challenges that we have this stage. He's also an executive director at the ISCT Executive Education and visiting assistant at ISEG. And yeah, he's involved in several academic and scientific research projects, and also he's a big mentor to different projects and startups which are connected to innovation. Welcome. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. We hope we can make this a bit useful. Perhaps we can start just with a small intro and saying hi to the participants and to everyone, talking a bit about yourself, just real quick. And then we can jump on into the topic at hand. Maybe we can start with Nuno.
Hi, Leon. Hi, everyone. First of all, I have to thank your invitation for this session and for this roundtable. And I would like to congratulate all your team for this initiative and for World Data League organization, because it is in fact a wonderful initiative, and I am sure that apart from the competition, we are going to get very important answers for very important and actual problems. Well, basically, like you were saying, so far, and concerning everything related with data-driven cities, as you know, we work a lot on research on mobility and other dimensions about people behavior. And we have a long experience working mainly with municipalities, for example, at the local area, with transportation companies to help them to address actual demand for mobility that the population has. And there's not an end for the questions that we can make for data. And that's why, for example, we developed, together with you, we developed several areas of interest concerning a data-driven city. Apart from, for example, any and all mobility solutions, there are also lots of problems relating, for example, environment and sustainability, for example, economy, tourism. There are lots and lots. Real estate, for example. There are there is a very wide range of problems that I am sure that all the teams, and this is my expectation, that all the teams will be capable of providing creative and different and innovative solutions, because they are the problems that we are facing today. And that is my expectation for World Data League and for all the teams and competitors.
Thank you so much. Miguel, maybe you?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think I will pick up on what Nuno just said and congratulate World Data League for this inspiring initiative for two reasons. First of all, I'm in fact a professor and associated dean at Nova Information Management School, public university in Lisbon, which works in the area of information management and data science. So everything that is related with data science is of interest to us, and we are committed in supporting these kind of initiatives. And we think that we are changing the world with the potential of data science. And the second question, which is the first edition of the World Data League, is devoted to the Sustainable Development Goal 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, which is the area where I work. I created a few years ago a laboratory at Nova Information Management School, Nova Cidade, Urban Analytics Lab, just like Leonid just referred. And following what Nuno said, I strongly believe that the biggest challenges humanity faces today are going to be solved, or the battle will take place in the cities. So the cities is where people live. Today, 50% of the global population lives in urban areas. This is growing at a very high speed. In 2050, we believe that 70% of the world's population will live in cities. So this is where we have pollution problems, waste management problems, security problems, and that's not for curiosity, but this SDG 11 states its four ambitions: not only sustainability, but also inclusion, resiliency, and security. So the challenge today is, in fact, to take advantage of data science, to use the data that we can collect. And today we have the opportunity not only to take advantage of the data that the municipalities, the local authorities, the companies have in their transactional systems, but also from the collective intelligence, from the input that we receive from citizens, either actively in applications where they report problems in the city, the participatory budgets processes and things like that, but also passively when they use an app, when they use their mobile phones, when they use a public transport system. All of that data can feed new ideas, new products and services that can make cities change, that can support the necessary movement towards a more sustainable urban environment, which is today in Europe one of the biggest challenges we face. The Green Deal, the Horizon Europe, they state that we aim at building a European continent which is climate neutral, and we have the ambition of having 100 cities climate neutral and intelligent by 2030. So I think that you are, with this first edition of the World Data League, in the edge of what are the challenges humanity faces today, and we are looking forward to learn with you what could be some of the answers to the important challenges we face. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this real nice intro. So I think we can jump right in. And before we jump into this, I just want to remind the participants that you have this nifty text box on the right. If you select Q&A, you can write your questions. Even if you don't have a question, you can look at the questions that are written there and just upvote the ones that you think are most interesting to be answered by this panel. Perhaps maybe we can just really jump into this kind of thing where maybe Nuno could give a small overview of the challenges. I mean, I already gave the participants a challenge, but maybe your perspective as a challenge owner from this and why you find them important, especially. I think that that's one thing. And then if Miguel also you have some comments on it, and especially if you could give us your point of view on those challenges, I think would be really interesting for the participants as well.
Well, Leon, first of all, these two challenges that you already presented, they are only the first two challenges from all the challenges that the teams will face. And when we were designing these challenges, we had one main guideline. The challenges would have to be something actual that, in fact, right now, our governments, our municipalities, our society is demanding and wants an answer. So it should be relevant. And these two are, in fact, probably one of the most relevant questions that right now each city, and mainly the major cities in, for example, in most developed countries, are asking. For example, we cannot forget that we are living a pandemic, first of all. And this pandemic is changing the way people behave. So, across, for example, several countries, we saw a decline on the usage of public transportation, for example. And the profile of the users changed. If we compare, and in several cities and in several kinds of public transports, for example, buses, the underground, any other, we can see a shift, and some segments, in fact, are avoiding. They left the public transport, and even when countries don't have any restrictions, they're not coming back. So it is important to try to identify what, in fact, motivated people, apart from a pandemic, for example, and all the risk perception that people might have, what, in fact, motivates people to just quit using the public transportation. And for this challenge, we have basically two sets of data. First of all, profile into periods. So before the pandemic and during the pandemic, but without any restrictions. And then we have an aggregated OD matrix. So we can profile demand, in fact, for mobility, for example, for all segments and from all regions. Where do people want to go? So,
can I just stop you for? Can you maybe? I'm pretty sure that there's some participants who might not be aware of what's an OD matrix. Might be the first time.
Oh, it's an origin-destination matrix. So basically, are there any patterns, any, for example, profiles on this demand for mobility that, for example, have higher churn rates, for example? What should, for example, the mayors of the biggest cities, the stakeholders from public transportation companies, what should they address? How should they design this new need for mobility? Okay, so we cannot, for example, if people behavior is changing, we cannot address with the same offer. Okay, we cannot address with the same offer different needs. So, which strategy, in fact, should we provide? Can we achieve a model, for example, comparing precisely the behavior before COVID and after COVID? Can we, for example, achieve a general model so we can provide the stakeholders decision model to, in fact, design to attract, for example, new targets, new public, for example, that in fact needs mobility, and probably they're not using, well, I'm not going into some details because it's something that the teams will find out, of course, but this is happening in any cities. In this example, you have two cities, two of the biggest cities in Portugal, Lisbon and Oporto. So you can compare, you can choose one. You can, of course, use external data like Leon was telling, for example. One suggestion is before going deep into the data, before start crunching data, just make a quick review on the literature. There's always intelligent people around that probably might have studied it before. So it's not a waste of time just to waste 30 minutes, 1 hour, just look at what people have done. But in fact, this is one of the biggest questions. For example, you know, and just to end about this subject, about this topic, there are some people, or there is some people that currently are thinking that public transportation will, after COVID, will die. People are not coming back to the public transportation. Can we really say that? Probably we can't. We cannot. Why? Because there are other factors, other variables. For example, we don't know how deep will be the economical crisis, and probably, surely, the public transportation will lose some segments, some traditional segments, but probably public transportation will win other segments. So this is a question that every city is asking. What should I change because behavior is changing and I cannot offer the same for different needs? This is the first one. I don't know if you want to
Let's start
talk.
with the first one. Let's start with the first one, and maybe let's also see Miguel's perspective and see, Miguel, if you even want to do the exercise and think about, like, if you were a young student, or not a young student, but a young professional just starting with data, how would you feel about this challenge, knowing what you know now?
Okay, thank you. Now, I think this is a critical challenge we face. So not only because, in fact, due to the pandemic, we are all having this perception that the use of public transportation in the future is going to be an issue, but also if we take that into the context of the environmental challenge that we face, the climate emergency, we cannot have people using private transport in their daily life. So this is really critical to understand the phenomena and to see if we can design strategies to make sure that the public transport will be used by people. And having said that, and if we think a little bit, but what is the problem? Okay, why are people not thinking or not using today public transportation due to pandemic? Because they feel there are too many people at the same time and space, and we want to keep distance, physical distance from other people. So maybe taking advantage of data science, of the data that is provided by you, enriched by external data, are we able to adjust dynamically and in real time the supply to the demand, so that we can make sure that there are no people jams in the public transport system. And this is a huge challenge because probably the current infrastructure is not capable of answering this challenge. But we have to think outside of the box and to see how can this be handled. Maybe by decoupling the working hours, the starting of the business day, maybe trying to interconnect different mobility modes. And so this is why having the data, we can think about new solutions, new information services that can in fact lead us in this uncertain future that we face today. Thank you, Leon.
That's actually a very interesting point that you had. I was just looking up some numbers because I was in Moscow a couple of years back, and I remember the crazy traffic jams there. And I just wanted to check on some statistics because I think it was considered at some point the most traffic, like the city with the biggest traffic in the world or something like that. And it says that Moscow drivers on average waited 210 hours in traffic queues last year and reached an average speed of around 18 kilometers per hour. So I can do faster with my bike than that. So that's really crazy, I think. And yeah, I think that's really on point, exactly your comments. So then we have one question actually coming from the participants. Which are the most impactful data use cases for cities? And how is this impact measured? So how would you, so the question is, and maybe I would go back, but maybe I would iterate a bit on this question and rephrase it in a different way. So let's say that we're creating a solution, let's say this churn model or whatever you want to call it. And then we want to see, okay, what impact will this have? How would you measure this impact after creating this model? Or how would you think to, okay, if I'm going to create this churn model, what impact is going to have it there?
Well, that's easy. That's easy. For example, that's the kind of question that, for example, our customers make us. Well, that's easy. Let's see how many new public transportation users we will get. That's the main KPI. Getting more people to use public transportation. So you have to. That's typically what you want to achieve when you want to design an integrated transportation model to design a new network, for example, according to people mobility demand, and that's what you always want to achieve. To avoid people from leaving and stop using public transportation, and try to capture new users, to penetrate in new segments that traditionally don't use the public transportation.
And I may add, so increasing the number of public transport usage, also reducing the number of cars, of traffic jams in ways in the city centers, and finally, and not least important, the air quality. Okay, so today we have sensors that measure air quality in cities. We have even satellite imagery that measure air quality from the space, and so all of this can be measured, and we should think always also in the impacts in health, that can come from that side of the equation. So there are several metrics, and of course, then there are use cases that are really interesting. How local authorities address this challenge. I can just give you an example, because as I said, we have to think outside of the box. So, for instance, in Portugal there is a municipality, Cascais, where it's the first municipality in Portugal, and I don't know if there are many in the world, where they offer free public transport to all the people that live in Cascais. And the business model behind the free public transport system is the fact that when you use your private car and you park somewhere in Cascais, what you pay to park your car is used to finance the free public transport system. And also the taxes that the car owners pay every year is also used for that system. So this is not just shall we say, a numerical challenge. We have to think how not only the solution that we can propose, but also the business model behind it to sustain it. Okay, so thank you
so much. So maybe just have one real quick question, more of a practical question, perhaps to Nuno, before we jump to the second challenge. Is it that so the question is, the data sets available for the churn model, does it include the COVID data, so the current pandemic, or not? Because from their understanding, that was only the pre-COVID data available. So maybe you can clarify that this for the participants, Nuno.
No, I'm sure it has two periods, both periods, pre-COVID period and one period in which, in these cases, in these cities, we didn't have any restrictions. And it was, by last year, it was the moment in which we had the highest mobility with open schools and everything. So we can, you can compare both periods.
Okay. I think that this is being confused with the second challenge to which we're going to get now, because I think for those it's only pre-COVID until March 2020, if I'm not mistaken, from April 2019 to March 2020.
Yes, the second one is fully.
No, maybe we can already jump to that challenge. So you can give a small intro, we can do again, Miguel, and then you can also explain why the choice for only pre-COVID for it. Maybe we can do it that way.
Yes, well, the second challenge, Leon. The second challenge, well, it's also one of the most relevant questions right now. I can tell you that traditionally we have three main segments of users of public transportation. Traditionally, we have, of course, young people, students, on one hand. On the other hand, we have elder people, okay, and then we have the active population, working class population, typically from lower classes that typically are public transportation users. So one of the classical segments that use public transportation are precisely is precisely the senior population. But as you know, and in most of the cities, and in our case, for example, in our country, just to give you an idea, 30% of our population, 30% is 60 years old or older or higher, okay? So in 10 years, our population is getting even older. And this is true not only here, but everywhere, in most of the major cities. So, first of all, it's relevant because people is getting old. It's definitely an important target. Second, being a traditional segment for public transportation, we must think that not all people from this segment, in fact, use public transportation. And we have to know why. But they need to move also. But traditionally, our offer is not designed to address typically this segment needs. Basically, in any city, most of the offers are designed, for example, to address students, to address people that go to work, that typically are commuters, okay? And you don't have specially designed offers for this huge, massive segment in which we all, you know that one day you're going to be my age, okay? Wait, don't forget that. But we all are going to get into that segment. And currently, right now, the offer is not designed to answer this segment's needs. So basically, if we want to develop solutions for the people, to develop solutions for the population, don't forget that probably, and in a few years, probably we will have 40% of the population above 60 years old. Okay, right now we have 22, 23% above 65 years old. In 5 years, this percentage is going to increase massively. And most of them, they are in the cities. They are concentrated in the cities. So we cannot forget this segment. It's the majority of the people, and the offer is not addressing their needs.
Thank you so much. I don't know, Miguel, do you have any thoughts also on this challenge?
I was hearing Nuno, and in fact, this is a challenge. So I referred initially the one of the ambitions of the SDG 11 is inclusion, and the elderly are a growing problem in developed countries. Also, of course, a problem in the rest of the world, but this is critical. We have to make sure that they have mobility options, and this is, of course, something that can inspire us in this challenge that are launched in this World Data League. I was looking at some of the questions that are being placed by the audience, and they are asking if we know of real world cases where data is being used. There are, of course, really different scenarios worldwide. So we have countries where this is becoming really relevant and present. But I would like to use some examples from Portugal, from my country, if you allow me. I was thinking about for instance, in Lisbon right now, they are monitoring COVID data in real time. And depending on the number of cases, if the number of cases goes above, I think is 120 by 100,000 inhabitants of a certain parish, we can have access to free COVID tests in the local pharmacies. And this is changing over time, according to the data that the local authorities has regarding this pandemic. And this is one example. We are not seeing many more examples. Not long ago, we were involved with Lisbon also, trying to use artificial intelligence to predict when they're going to happen an accident and where in the city tomorrow, so that the fire department can make sure that independent of the location of that incident, they were able to reach and help in less than 5 minutes. And so local authorities are following also what today's global trend, which is data-driven public policies. Not too long ago, the idea of data-driven public policies was in the evaluation part, okay? So some public policy was created, was launched, and then we try to evaluate the impacts. Today, with data science, we can in fact use the data to create like a acupuncture public policy, because we can in fact know much more about the reality, like Nuno said about the people's behavior, so that we can make sure that a certain public policy will reach a certain result, even before we make it happen. And this is what the challenge today. One limitation, and then I will ask also Nuno for his opinion, is that we are here trying to inspire you, but there is a real world problem here, which is data access. So I'm not going to say everything is a blue sky and we can do everything. No, we have severe limitations when we want to access data, because we want very detailed data. We want access to the raw data, of course, complying with all the privacy issues and guaranteeing that we are not going to compromise any security. As Lion said, when you look for external data, please stay within the limits that Leonid referred. But in fact, data access is still a problem. And when we look at the challenges that we have, the biggest amount of data that we want is it's not in the hand of the public sector. So we cannot ask the government to release the data, because the data most of the times nowadays is in the hands of private companies. I always, I like very much one of the examples that I use very often, which is probably some of you know Strava, the application for physical activity monitoring. And you should go to their website, to a thing called Strava Lab, where they have an heat map at a global scale with the mobility habits of the people that uses Strava, which is amazing, because this private company knows the mobility behaviors at a global scale, which is really amazing. Okay, thank you. Nuno, I don't know.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you. In fact, we still have problems with data. Okay, we still have lack of data. So, and we are always trying to get more data. But I'm an optimist, and basically today we have more data than we ever had. And for example, for these challenges, apart from the data that we shared, I strongly advise you, for example, to get all the external data that you can find. Okay, just look for the points of interest. For example, this is critical to describe the demand for mobility and the destinations for the elder people, because they don't have the same behaviors and needs that, for example, active population. But just try to find all the data, because well, this is just like for example, just like cooking. You know that that depends more on you and on your creativity to do a 5-star gourmet dish with the few ingredients that you find on your kitchen. Okay, so basically this is the point. We have few ingredients always. We always would like to have more and more data. Competition to have data right now, it's an issue. Okay, so big companies are competing for data. They are. This is one of the main topics right now. The economics of data. Okay, but. For these challenges, I think we have more than enough data, and I really expect that all these brilliant teams can give us very innovative solutions, and it will be a real pleasure to spread and to publish your findings, because they are really needed right now at this moment. In all over the world.
May I just add, before giving back the word to Lion, the following weather points of interest that Nuno just mentioned. Also, the cultural agenda. Suddenly, there is a shift in mobility just because something happened in the city, a soccer game, a concert, and furthermore, something that was really relevant before COVID, which was tourism, like local accommodation. So I know that you are going to have a session on open street maps, and there is a very, very rich source of data that can also feed your models. Thank you, Leon.
So maybe I would like just to add to this question. While listening to you, I was wondering what was happening outside of Portugal as well in terms of data usage by the government. And I found some interesting examples from the US, and I'll just mention maybe two. One of them is that fighting fraud detection, especially by the Federal Housing Authority. So basically they use data science to forecast claim rates, default rates, and repayment rates. And then they even use further collected data to build cash flow models, which kind of help them determine the amount of premium which they want to maintain, if they want to maintain a positive cash flow for them. But also the social security. They use this kind of big data strategy that they want to analyze fraudulent claims in social security. So I think that's also a big issue, because I can imagine it happens a bit all around the world when you have this kind of social security schemes. And there's this website I can send later for reference for the participants that they're interested, but there's a lot of examples there of how actually data is being currently used by different governments. That being said, I think we're going to jump to one question which is very specific for the first challenge. The question goes like this: can we assume that the solution is for a non-pandemic situation, given the seniors are more vulnerable in this pandemic and public transportation may increase infection risks, even with additional controls?
Can we assume that the solution is for a non-pandemic situation?
Yes. So if the solution that they're supposed to submit, it's for a non-pandemic situation.
Yes. That's the point.
Hopefully, we will get rid of it.
Yes, that's the point. We cannot think of having, for example, a major strategy specific, because this is huge to design, for example, a proper integrated transportation model for a huge city. It's something that you cannot do in 2 or 3 days. It's something that you have to define strategically, and to be last longing, and hopefully for a normality situation. Yes, assume that we don't have COVID. Yes.
Yes, hopefully in very soon. And then actually I have two questions which are quite upvoted, but I think the second one has been more or less answered, which is which one is the biggest challenge, the lack of data or the fact that the major political decisions, most of them are not data driven. What do you see right now is the major, I think I want to rephrase the question. What do you think right now is the major reason why there are a lot of political decisions that are seen, at least that are seen, because I don't know what's happening in the background, that are seen as maybe not being data driven?
If I may answer to that question, as Nuno already said, I mentioned that we still need more data, but we have already plenty of data. And so in fact, public policy could already be done in a data-driven approach. And there is another issue, another question, that is the reality. As you know, the participants on this World Data League, the skills necessary to take advantage of this new reality are demanding. And so what happens in reality also is that in the public administration, there is a huge need for skills, for training in order to make this change. So this is an opportunity. Of course, because a lot of this will also happen in collaboration models, outsourcing. So this is a huge market that is now appearing, that probably you will have an active role in that area. So I think this is moving, it's changing, but we need several things in the recipe. So going back to the cooking. This is not the cherry on top of the cake. This is all about the recipe. So either we change the recipe or we will not get there.
Nuno, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I mostly agree. We have, in fact, we have plenty of data, and well, we cannot imagine the amount of data that we will have 10 or 20 years from now. Okay, so. Data is going to explode at levels that we cannot imagine. But we have plenty of data. But even with data, well, decision making, it will always be political, okay? And for example, it will always be political, and that depends on the positioning you have, of course. For example, on the interpretation that decision makers make of the data they have. Okay, so these are two completely different situations. Lack of data, of course, we are always starving for data because we like data, but we have plenty. Okay, it's not because of lack of data that decision makers don't make decisions, but they have to make their interpretations, and sometimes, we cannot forget that a decision will always be political. Okay, but for example, for more operational, for more tactical, and less strategic decisions, okay, and either it's public policy or a private decision, it doesn't matter. For more tactical situations, once again, I am optimistic, and this is a cultural change. We are living a cultural change, and right now, companies, public decision makers, politicians, they are getting slowly, but they are getting more data aware. Really, this is my vision, because data is overwhelming. It's like a huge wave that is going to flood any decision table, and it's something that is unstoppable. So people are aware, decision makers are aware, but it's a cultural change. It changes slowly, but I'm an optimist.
Okay. Thank you so much. There's one thing that you're not aware, but on the live stream, we have a little counter on one of the sides, which is counting until the start of the stage and while the challenges are released. And this counter already says less than 5 minutes. So perhaps we could go now into maybe kind of a wrap up, and maybe if there's any tips or any kind of advice you would like to give to the participants, maybe general, maybe specific to the competition, but I think they will really appreciate it.
Well, I have basically, and something that I already said, I probably have 3 tips, 3 more wide and basically some guidelines, and 1 very specific, very technical. For example, please look at all the knowledge about these subjects, all the knowledge that science already has. Just do a brief survey on the literature before you just jump into the data and start crunching data and analyzing it. Second, look at all the external data. For example, we have a question about micromobility. For example, there is a huge amount of free data about, for example, the altitudes, about several other aspects about cities, geography and topography that are relevant. Look at the weather, look at the points of interest, look at everything that might be of interest, but only relevant data. And then the technical one, the very technical one. I know that you are going to have a workshop about spatial data, okay? When we are talking about mobility, we are talking about spatial data. Don't forget, and this is just a tip for all the teams, don't forget that spatial data typically has spatial dependence. This means that everything is related with everything, okay? Just a small tip.
Thank you so much.
A very technical one.
Miguel, we have like 1 minute until the participants can go.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
From us, no.
As Nuno says regarding spatial relevance, what is closer to us is more important, and that is a fact. Okay, I would just like to add one thing to what Nuno said, because I completely agree with the suggestions. Focus, okay? Because it's very easy to lose your focus when we are in this area. We are able to capture lots of data, many different data sources, And at a certain point, that's an ocean. So focus. What is the problem? What is the goal? This is my objective. And trying to learn from what has already been done previously to take a small step forward to create some value. So my tip is focus on a specific problem and don't lose that focus.
Okay, so we're pretty much
good luck
by 20 seconds. I don't know if I can get still the team out here. Okay, guys, get ready. We have 10 seconds left until this competition is released. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and good luck. Miguel, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, the challenge is about to open. Challenge opens and we're out. Good luck, guys.
Good luck, everyone.